Otters by Graham Meadows and Claire Vile. About otters. Otters belong to the same family as weasels, skunks, and badgers. Various species of otters are found worldwide, except in Australia, New Zealand, and Antarctica. They live in habitats ranging from high mountain ranges to low-lying tropical forests and oceans. Otters are ideally adapted to life in the water. They have long, slender bodies, webbed feet, and tapered tails. Some scientists say there are 9 species of otters, while others say there are as many as 13. Where otters live. This book is about 2 species of otters, sea otters and oriental small-clawed otters. Oriental otters are found over much of southern Asia, from India to China, and as far south as Indonesia. They live mainly in rainforests near streams, rivers, mangrove swamps, and marshes. Sea otters live in salt water. Some sea otters live in the South Pacific, off the coast of Argentina. The oriental otter spends most of its life on land. The sea otter hardly ever leaves the water. What sea otters look like. Sea otters can grow to be about 4 feet long, and they weigh up to 70 pounds. The fur on a sea otter's head is a lighter color than the fur on its body. Because they spend almost all their lives in the water, sea otters have a lot of webbing on their hind feet, which they use as flippers. Their front feet have less webbing than their hind feet. Sea otters have claws on all 4 feet. They can pull in their claws. Sea otters' tails are short and thick. They are shaped like paddles. People used to hunt sea otters, which are now an endangered species. What oriental otters look like. Oriental otters are the smallest of all the otter species. They are about 2 feet long and weigh between 6 and 9 pounds. Their feet are only partially webbed, with less webbing on their front feet than their hind feet. The oriental small-clawed otter has been given its name because its claws are very short. The claws on its front feet look more like fingernails than real claws. How otters groom themselves. Otters spend a lot of time in the water. To keep their fur waterproof, they groom themselves regularly. This grooming spreads oil from their skin through their coat. The oil protects their fur from the water. Sea otters use their front feet to squeeze water from their fur and then blow air into it. They have very thick fur. Unlike other aquatic mammals, sea otters have no blubber under their skin to help keep them warm. Oriental otters groom themselves by nibbling and licking at their fur and by rolling around on the ground. What sea otters eat. Sea otters float above the beds of kelp or seaweed and feed on the animals that live among the kelp. Their diet includes sea urchins, crabs, and shellfish, such as clams, mussels, limpets, and abalone. Some sea otters catch and eat fish. Sea otters mainly feed at dawn and dusk. They dive down into the kelp beds and search for their food. They use their front feet to find and catch their prey. Sea otters usually dive as deep as 20 or 30 feet below the surface of the water, but sometimes they plunge as deep as 200 feet in search of food. How sea otters use tools. Most of the animals that sea otters eat have a hard shell. In order to get at the soft flesh inside the shell, sea otters have learned to use a stone as a tool to break down the shell. Once a sea otter has found an animal with a shell and returned to the water's surface, it floats on its back with the stone on its chest. Then the otter holds the shell between its front feet and pounds it against the stone until the shell breaks. Some people think that sea otters have a favorite stone that they carry around with them and use again and again. What oriental otters eat? Oriental otters usually rest or sleep in a den or holt during the day and hunt for the food at night. They mainly feed in shallow water, paddling along the surface as they search for food. Their diet includes snails, mussels, crabs, frogs, and fish. When they find a frog or fish, they react quickly and chase it through the water. They twist and turn through the water using their tail as a rudder. Oriental otters often travel more than 5 miles a night. Otter families. Oriental otters often form family groups numbering up to 15 animals. These groups include an adult male and several females and their young. Several otters form groups that float over the kelp beds where their food lives. These groups, called rafts or pods, can contain up to 700 animals. Each group is made up of either males only or female with their young. An oriental otter group is called a band of otters. Their young. Sea otters usually give birth to one baby or cub at a time while they are in the water. The newborn cubs are already well developed and their eyes are open. Sea otter cubs weigh about 4 pounds at birth. Oriental otters give birth to their cubs on land. The female finds a dry den where it can give birth. The den must be close to a food supply so that the mother otter can feed herself while taking care of her cubs. The female gives birth to between 2 and 6 cubs, which are blind and completely helpless. Each cub weighs less than 2 ounces. How young otters grow up. Oriental otter cubs develop slowly. Their eyes open at about 5 weeks of age. By the time they are 10 weeks old, they play outside the den. They don't start to learn to swim until they are about 3 months old. Sea otters grow up much faster. At birth, they can already float because they have fluffy, thick fur that is full of trapped air. About 6 weeks after they are born, they can swim. Not long after that, they can dive underwater with their mother. Otters can live from 10 to 20 years.